All right. It should be recording. Yep.
Great, thank you. So this, it's 5 o'clock, and I'd like to call the September 2020 Airport Commission meeting to order. And so the first item on the agenda is the proof of posting a notice. So Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, as usual, we have posted the notice in all the right places on our front hallway. It's out at the airport. It was on our website, and we distributed it through our listserv.
Great. All right. Thank you, Mark. The next item is the proof of, we did that, public comment regarding the agenda items. So we'd like to give anybody that would like to speak 3 minutes to talk about hopefully the topics related to agenda items. And so with that, Mark, I'll let you go ahead and conduct this part of it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the meeting's recording because I was helping somebody who called. I got off my screens here, so I just want to make sure that everything is in order, and I don't see where it says it's recording, so just a moment.
Okay, no problem.
Does anybody else see that on their display?
I see it. It says Airport Commission meeting 2 hours.
Oh, it says it's recording? Okay.
No, well,
I don't know if it says it's recording or not.
yeah, what I see is your screen, Mark, but with a screen. It says 2 reminders, so it looks like we're looking at.
Yeah.
And I do not see the little blinking red dot that says recording.
And I see it at the upper of my
Well, I do too.
phone.
It's at the
Oh.
upper left.
It says
yep.
upper right. It says
Okay.
recording.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
It is
so-
So I
recording?
think we're
It
good.
looks that way.
Okay.
I see it also, Ray.
All right, thank you. For some reason, I'm not seeing that today, but okay.
But it's good for double checking. So
Yeah.
Mark, is anybody would like to speak? Mark, why don't you conduct this section?
This is David Bryce.
Yep, David
Middleton.
Bryce
I
is
have-
on. Go ahead, David.
Okay, thank you. This is David Bryce from Middleton, town of Middleton. According to the Transperth Research Board at the Cooperative Research, clearly communicate the mission and vision of the airport and values of its municipal owner. A good example are the values from the Truckee Tahoe, California airport. And
Is anybody else not hearing him?
I can't hear you, David. Can you,
Can't hear David.
I can't hear David.
David?
I'm here.
Start all over again.
Is that better? Can you hear me
Yeah.
better now?
Yes?
Okay, I'll just speak a little louder. Okay, David Bryce from Middleton. According to the Transportation Research Board, Airport Cooperative Research Program, Report 77, an airport should clearly communicate the mission and vision for the airport and the values of its municipal owner. There's an example of another airport from the Truckee Tahoe, California, which included 4 bullet points: community-oriented in its focus, outreach to the community, environmental stewardship, and excellence in service. And on the website called the Truckee Tahoe Airport.com, the region is a very noise-sensitive community. And they have on the website saying pilots should abide by the noise abatement procedures and a voluntary curfew. The radio says that please respect the KTRS's voluntary curfew and do not fly between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. This is an example of this particular airport. For Maury, I think it's good to define the mission statement and how the airport interacts with the community, the environment, and the business community, and who is in charge of regulating the airport. This seems to be sometimes confusing. And of course, with community relationships. There was recently an addition of to the Maury Airport, another company that was offering many of the duplexes. I think this actually started in 2015, period. Any potential Maury Airport expansion should first consider a number of factors, which is the analysis of compatible land use for the existing residents, schools, and other noise-sensitive areas. Recently, there was several headlights aircraft the airport from the west at night.
You're breaking
Try
up.
the
I don't think we're getting all of that.
The aircraft. Okay. They felt like the aircraft would land on top of their houses. This would prompt my recommendation that the airport should consider a limit of residential areas to 1,000 feet above ground level and avoiding takeoff and landing patterns that breach the 1,000-foot limit. Freedom to fly comes with the responsibility for community noise and interaction with the entire communities. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, David. We appreciate your comments. Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment?
I would like to speak.
Yes, please.
I'm Jeanette Wheat, and I'm also a Middleton Township resident. And I live up on one of the bluffs along Highway 14. And one of the things I think is that the planes that fly over don't take any consideration of the change in the altitude of the properties. So when they fly over from the fields and then over the bluff, I'm way up higher. They need to adjust their height to be further up. That's what I think. Also, you know, inside my house, I hear these planes, but I can't see them. And even if I run out in my yard, I'm so wooded, I can't see them. And by the time I would get to some place where I could see them, they would be long gone away. So I have sometimes tried to report, but, you know, I can't give you much of a report except the date and the time, and then I'm hearing this noise. Frequently, it sounds like it's somebody circling, like the same plane going round and round. And I don't know if these are training flights or what they're doing, but they're really obnoxious. When I do report, the thing is, I know there's one place to report through the Middleton City website, I guess, for the airport. I don't know if there's other places I should be reporting as well. I don't know what happens to those reports when I go to the website and report. And I would like to know those things. I'd like to know how many different places I can report to and what happens to those reports when I log them. And I guess that's what I have to say.
Sure. There is, and I think it's on the website, Mark, and Rich, you correct me, that we have a phone number that's a hotline that you can also call. And there's also a form. And so there's multiple methods. And on the form, if you use the internet form, you can request an update and a callback. So, you know, we've tried to provide many mechanisms. So depending upon what technology you have or you don't have, you still will be able to make a report. It looks like Mark is getting into the airport if you look at your screen right now.
And I'm sorry, where does this report go?
It goes, well, they're all collected, and they go to the airport manager, and the airport manager will discern whether or not they're aware of the individual, and will have a discussion with the individual. But we really don't have, I mean, we can't like write tickets. We don't have enforcement authority. But we do have the authority to counsel pilots, and we make every reasonable effort to try to do that. So Mark, you want to go ahead and tell her what you've got here? Mark?
Sure. So this is the city's, the airport page on the city's website. And what I put on there is upper right corner, you'll see the noise abatement hotline, which has been in existence for probably going on 15 years here. It's certainly over 10. That's a phone number. And that gets you right to the airport office, and they check that on a regular basis for messages. And then last fall, we instituted this aircraft noise online complaint form, which is, if you select it, it takes you to, well, actually the problem is I'm in an editing mode. Let me just see here. I can't, there we go, that should be better. All right, so the noise complaint form looks like this. And there's been some complaints about the complaint form in that it only allows you to file one complaint at a time. And it's using a system that is really geared for the website and not smartphones as much, although it can be used that way. It's just not as slick as maybe some apps are. So this allows you to select, describe the complaint, the nature of the complaint, whether it was a low-flying plane, frequency, noise, vibrations, etc., date and time of incident, and then various other information if you are available to see the plane, ideally what type of plane it is. And then it provides location information, and then asks if you want a response.
Do you have access to the internet?
Oh, yeah, I'm on it now. And yeah,
Okay.
the problem is, as I explained, I can't give you much of any detail. Basically, I can give you date and time and my location. So I guess that then my follow-up is, if I make a call, which is what I've done previously, or if I fill out this form, is a record kept, and where is that record kept, and who has access to it?
Rich, you want to answer that? If they make a complaint.
Okay, the records are kept. Every noise complaint that we get is logged in. We keep a hard copy of it, and then we have a spreadsheet that's available to everyone who would request it. I've had people want to come in and take our noise, our ledger, which I won't allow, but we can certainly make copies of the spreadsheet. So we do, and we've been doing this since about 2004. So we have a comprehensive list, and I can, it's interesting. You'll undoubtedly stick around and listen to the airport manager's report, but there's some interesting bits about that. I'm also going to suggest, because people have been emailing me directly, and through the business, we are going to be changing providers. I am not going to be providing my personal email to people to continue to do this practice, but I do believe that the city can set up an email base or an email address for noise reports, which will serve the same function.
Okay. So I think, we spent over 3 minutes, Jeanette, and so we really kind of need to move on, but you know now where it's at, and you have the phone numbers, and so that gives you enough to be able to operate from. Okay?
Well, yeah, I've had all that. That wasn't the
Okay,
question.
well, we
So
need to
one-
move on. We only have 3 minutes for each individual. So Mark, you want to go to the next person? Mark? Are you there, Mark?
I'm here. I'm just
Wait,
looking at.
have anybody else would like to speak?
I don't see anybody else with the hand raised.
I'd like to speak.
Yeah,
Can I speak?
who's? Sure.
This is Eric Engen. Can you see me?
Yep, we can't.
You can or can't?
We can see you. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, great. My concern is not with the systems for reporting noise complaints. My issue is that I live in the noise abatement area, and the biggest problem that I have is with Mr. Maury's own flights. And he just mentioned that he's going to change his email address. Maybe that's because I emailed him directly. He provided that email to me. But you contact Richard Morey and complain about the training flights, which are cause the most amount of noise, most amount of irritation for our community. And it goes to him. It's his planes that are circling constantly. Sometimes 2 or 3 flights are going on, and they come up, they turn left right through the noise abatement area, and that's the pattern. And so the complaint goes in, it's logged, but nothing is done because it's the pattern for training flights to go right up the road or up the runway, veer right or don't veer right is common practice, and then turn left right through our neighborhood. So it's kind of like you got this system for setting up complaints and hearing complaints, but what really happens? Nothing happens. We just constantly endure Mr. Morey's training flights day after day after day. Today was windy. It was great because I love windy days. We don't have to hear it so much. But I think that all this talk about how to log complaints and all that is just noise. It just detracts from the real problem, which is Mr. Morey's constant training flights through our neighborhoods. And I don't care if it's been an airport since 1942 or 2005 or whatever. It's the neighborhood has changed, and I'm tired of hearing his planes. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about people's hobbies, people flying these toys around our neighborhood, and for whose benefit? Mr. Morey's. Meanwhile, everyone in this community suffers. Thank you.
John, I would like to make a comment. This is Ray. First of all, the speaker is in error on one part, and that is there is more than Mr. Morey. Mr. Morey has one business. Mr. Morey happens to be the airport manager, but there are other people that base on the airport that also give lessons. And it isn't
I understand
just
that.
all of Mr. Morey's, and there is out-of-towners that come in and shoot landings. We have no control over them because it is a federally run airport.
Right, and
I understand that there's
Commissioner-
others as well. I'm saying that Mr. Morey is the most abundant noise polluter in this area. I know that the Cirrus guys down the road, the dentist, his planes circle too, but the most planes are from Mr. Morey's.
Okay, gentlemen, and this is, and ladies, this section is for the public to make a comment, and we're really not supposed to be discussing it. We're journalizing and we're listening to what the public has to offer. So I think we've heard your issues, and we journalized your issues. And at this stage, I think we need to move on to whoever would like to speak. But limit everybody to 3 minutes.
Mr. Chair, I have a quick question for Mr. Engen. Do you live in the town of Middleton or town of Springfield? I just need it for the minutes.
Middleton.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments, sir.
We have
I'd
a
like to make a
request to speak from Jim Scorgi.
Okay,
Yes,
go ahead.
I'd like to make a comment relative to property values and sales. The house next door to us now has been for sale for 3 months without any chance of sale. I think it's directly affected by what's going on at the airport, and I am concerned about that. We're at 8411 Airport Road, right across the street from the airport.
Okay,
I'd like to make a comment.
thank you, sir.
Jenny Pavlovic, town of Middleton. Shouldn't take 3 minutes.
Okay, you got 3 minutes, Jenny.
I just have a question about, and I don't know that you would answer it today, whether there's any plans in the budget to add security cameras at the airport. I know it's probably not in the budget for 2021. I've heard you discuss that before. But whether there's any plans in the budget to add security cameras, either short term or if it would be something that wouldn't be until the master plan. One of the residents nearby had a big concern on August 15th about a plane and a helicopter that had a near miss over the neighborhood, and she witnessed it. I didn't see it. And I think they had a near miss by the airport too. And just wondering if there's probably other reasons to have security cameras for protecting the airport from attacks or whatever, but I don't know that it's a big target for that, but just wondering if that's being considered at all.
I know that there's been comments and, but to the best of my knowledge, it's never been an item on an agenda. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you for your comments, Jane. Next, anybody else would like to make a comment? Okay, if none,
John, I would just note that Commissioner Fusard has also joined the meeting.
Okay, all right. Welcome, Luke. So with that, I'd like to close the public comment section of the agenda and move on to the next item, which is approval of minutes. I'll give everybody a couple of seconds here and to look through the minutes, and hopefully somebody will make a motion for approval.
And Luke, I would just note that you're unmuted. I wanted to make sure you're unmuted this time.
I appreciate that, Mark. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Great.
This is Robert. I would make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Okay, Robert has made a motion to approve the minutes. Would anyone care to second? Is that Ray?
Yep, Ray will second it.
Ray will second. So we have a first and a second.
And-
Will there be any discussion?
And John, I just have one comment. I was going to add the
Yeah.
words, the date of the minutes. Usually I put that in here, as you can see on the screen. I didn't list the date.
Okay,
And that was just an oversight on my part. So I will interpret the motion as approving these minutes from August 6th,
okay.
since that's what was in the packet.
Thank you for the clarification. So we have a first, a second, no discussion. And with that, I'd like to call the motion to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. With that, the motion carries.
And
So
hey,
the-
John, this
Yes,
is
sir.
Robert. I'd just like to ask, I know we have a number of people listening in on this call, and that's great.
Yeah.
But I would ask that if you're not part of our meeting, that you please mute yourself. We've got a lot of clanking going on in the background. So I think somebody has their microphone on right now, and it'd be helpful if you turned that off. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Robert. Good suggestion. So we're going to start out with the chair report. I've just got a couple of items here. First of all, just a brief update on the snow removal equipment. The snow removal equipment we've got through the Buy American section, and we have all the waivers in place. And very shortly, they're going to sign the contract, sign the check, and schedule delivery. So we should have all the equipment we need here for this winter season. So that has moved along quite nicely. The runway lights, we have found funding for the lights. And I think some of it will come from sources that we didn't anticipate. And so right now, all they have to do is get an approved engineer. Mead and Hunt has indicated that they have an interest in the project. However, for it to be awarded, there has to be more than one bidder. And so everybody is trying to find another bidder. So I see that to be move along quite nicely. Next meeting, we will go through our entitlements and we'll see how these items all shake out, where the funding's actually coming from and where our budget is. But right now, I think some of it's not quantifiable. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense till next meeting to go through the entitlements. The knock boxes were administratively approved and they are ordered. And so they are coming our way. And I think Moore Airplane Company is going to do the installation if I get it right. So all of those items are moving to completion.
And John, just to clarify, they were approved by the direction of the Airport Commission, and we just have implemented that administratively. I just wanted to.
Right, yeah, but we had to have, we can only recommend, it has to be approved by somebody else. And that was administratively approved by the city.
Upon the recommendation of the Airport Commission.
Upon the recommendation that we sent
Right.
forward.
That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, we're just the recommending body, and we can't write any checks, but we can recommend somebody to sign up. So there's one item that is very complicated, and I just want to hit the high points. All the source documents are here. Really don't want to have any discussion. That's why I put it as a report rather than a discussion action item. So last month, when Mark was working on the 10-year study the 10-year plan, I think it's 10 years, for the city, it's a process. Every department does it for every area, and he brought his bullet points forward. And somehow the discussion went off into compatible land use planning, which really, part of the reason I really don't want to talk about it, because really it's part of ANPAC. And I don't want to undermine ANPAC's work, which is going to start up here shortly. But there were some questions, and so we had a meeting, and I want everybody to be aware of the meeting and to be informed about the meeting. The meeting notes were provided for that meeting by Greg Stern, and you have that. So I'm just going to hit the real high point, and then we'll move on. So the federal government, the FAA, does have a list of requirements that for airports and master planning and whatever. The FAA, in their wisdom, hands down to the various states part of their authority. So many states assume the authority of the FAA, and they assume the authority, the regulations, and they modify and implement them differently. As you can imagine, Wyoming would implement planning quite differently than, say, Miami, Florida. They're very different areas, and they're operating very, very differently. The city, the state, in every state also takes part of their handed down authority and rehands it down. And in the state of Wisconsin, they hand it down to the sponsors. So the sponsors have this extraterritorial power, which is very strong for 3 miles out. A lot of states don't have that. So when we have this high-level discussion about the FAA and the regulations, all of that's true, but it's handed down in different ways and implemented differently. The compatible land use planning elements, most of those are embedded in the ALP, the environmental, the sound, all of those things are part of the ALP process. And they will get done, but every state's done differently. So to answer everybody's questions, that's kind of how it works. I asked a follow-up question to make sure that how it would work with ANPAC. And now I'm really stepping outside my bound. But in the ANPAC, and there's part of the contract here, and the question posed to me was, will the community have an opportunity to weigh in on what is passed by ANPAC, or ANPAC passes, I should say. So Mead and Hunt will do, using FAA formulas, will develop a forecast, and then using FAA guidance on how to interpret the forecast will, I'm not saying it's not going to make a suggestion. What they will do is they will identify what the best fit is for that problem, if you will. And that will be brought to the ANPAC along with several other alternatives. Every one of those alternatives, if you read through with the contract, will include land, sound alternatives. There's a lot of criteria. So that all the pros and cons will be brought forward to ANPAC. And so ANPAC will really have information for decisioning. And so the decisioning will be done at that. So Mean Hunt is not picking the answer. Mean Hunt is telling you what is the best fit for the FAA's algorithms. And then here are your alternatives. Here's the pros and cons. And also there'll be a fitness calculation or score that says how close each one of them is to the recommended, or not recommended, the identified FAA rule. So that's how the process kind of goes. So everybody, not everybody, but the AMPAC will have an opportunity to do its own decisioning. We'll have an opportunity to look at pros and cons. All of this is embedded in the way Wisconsin works. So everybody should take comfort that we have a lot of experts following all the appropriate rules, and that everybody will know what the good news and the bad news is, and they will be able to make a choice. Now, having said that, AMPAC is a recommending body. The Airport Commission is a recommending body. At the end of the day, the person who will make the decision is the city of Middleton and the Common Council. So that's kind of how the process is. It's all kind of written down in forms, and I suggest that you read through the supporting materials that we provided. If you have a question, drop me an email or Mark an email and let me know, and we will coordinate something so that you can get additional information as needed. But I really don't want to have a big public discussion when AMPAC is getting ready to fire up, and and we're talking about the same things they're talking about, and it's just it's a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, so that's that topic. So with that, I'd like to close out the chairperson's report and move to the airport manager's report. So with that, Rich, you're on.
Thank you, John. Can everyone hear me all right?
Beautifully.
Okay, very good. Okay, you've got copies of this. This is an outline, my manager's report. I'm going to add a few bits and pieces here that I find relevant. But from August 4th through September 1st, 2020, that's the date that I did the cutoff to try to get this information out. We had 40 noise and/or low-flying aircraft complaints. 2 individuals made 9 reports each. 1 made 11. These 3 individuals made up almost 75%, 29 out of 40 of these reports. The 3 reports that were made via the noise abatement hotline, there were only 3 via the phone, the normal channel, and only 1 via the computerized reporting system. 1 report was called directly to the Maury Airplane office. 1 report was called directly to Mark Opitz, and 35 reports were emailed directly to me. All right. All individuals who requested were contacted, the report people that needed follow-up. Pilots who were involved were contacted when they could be identified and appropriate. When I say appropriate, if someone's flying the pattern and following the noise abatement procedure and they get generated a noise complaint, I'm not going to talk to them. As simple as that. Okay, the report of a near miss, and I put that in quotation marks, between a helicopter and a Cirrus aircraft was investigated. With the chair's help, we were able to determine that there really wasn't a near miss. It was a vertical separation of over 400 feet, according to the flight tracking data, which is sufficient for clearance. There's a reason why helicopters fly a little lower, 500 feet AGL versus 1,000. They're slower. They don't always do that, but that is what was the case in this regard. I know there's been a lot of emails generated. I've reached out to the person that witnessed it and explained this. I did not hear back. So yes, it was not a near miss.
Yeah, the flight tracking software too, you have to remember, it's like a radar. It sweeps around and it takes a series of pictures. And in 1 second at 80 knots is something like 180 feet of distance. So you can have the 2 blips, on this little screen that looks like they're on top of each other, but they're far from on top of each other. So we have vertical separation and lateral separation. So
right,
as Rich said, I looked through everything myself as a helicopter pilot. there really isn't anything illegal there.
Yeah, the problem is that people are using a inaccurate tracking software for reporting a variation of 100 feet or so. In some instances, it's just not designed for this type of use.
That's correct.
Anyway, let's take a little look here. The Moore Airplane Company continues to operate at about 80% of the flight hours we had in the previous month, or a year ago. And in August of 2019, we had 7 noise complaints. We had 40 this month. Let's just do a little review.
Rental?
What's that?
Does that include rental hours or just instruction hours?
Oh, that's rental instruction. I'm just doing total hours of operation.
That's all in.
That's all in.
Okay.
That's including the very limited amount of charter we're doing. So let's just do a quick review. In April of 2019, we had 4 noise complaints. In April of 2020, we had 13, and we were operating at 45% of our hours of 2019. In May of 2019, we had 4 noise complaints. In May of 2020, we had 44 noise complaints at about 50% of our operations. Of course, we're not generating everything, but Capital Flight's in the same boat as we are. June of 2019, 11 noise complaints. June of 2020, 44 noise complaints, 4 times the number. July of 2019, 11. July of 2020, 33. August, 7 in 2019, 40 in 2020. All of those last 3 months, we're operating at about 80% of our capacity, or what we did, not capacity, but we did in 2019. I made a statement at the end that the politicizing of this reporting system is undermining its utility. We're getting reports for people following their appropriate noise procedures. This is an airport. We operate it as an airport. And this campaign, and I can only see it as a campaign when you have 3 people generating 75% of the noise complaints. It's bordering on harassment. I do not see how this is useful to us, frankly. Now, I am going to be changing our server. That's a business decision. I request that we establish an email address because people are not using the phone in and the system that the city has created to make their reports. I'd like to see that separated, and we can check on that as well. So that's something that I think we'll be looking at in the future. It's very easy to do, and Moore Airplane Company can host it if the city doesn't want to. All right. Let's go back along here. No accidents or incidents on the field or in the vicinity. Moore Airplane Company's ground school, it will be starting on September 15th. It will be all virtual. This is a new area for us, but it's what we want to do for safety. And all the safety seminars have moved into online format. Anyway, before I move on, are there any questions from the board? Okay. All right, the Moore staff continues to remove trees and brush along the property line, the fences. We've got about 7 years worth of neglect out there that we just haven't gotten to. I've hired someone specifically for that project, and we're making some good headway. We also have removed 1 tree that was on the Blettner property, did that in-house. We have a bunch of trees that need to be trimmed and or removed, probably trimmed. And I realize we have to wait until fall before we can trim oaks. Otherwise you have an oak wilt issue. We're going to continue moving through that. Then I just wanted to clarify the last time that we're talking about animal issues on the runway. The last time a pyrotechnic or non-lethal device was used for scaring birds off the runway was October 9th of 2019. I log every one of these that we use. We're trying to keep the sandhill cranes specifically off the runway so that they are not endangered by our operations. The two that forage here on a daily basis have been joined by two others, and all four of them seem to be smart enough to stay off the runaway mostly. Okay, we do not use lethal means for controlling animals. All right, what else do we have here? There's also been a call from non-pilots inquiring about sales of unleaded fuel. Just wanted to reiterate, there is no approved replacement for 100 octane low lead. That's what the vast majority of piston aircraft operate. If and when a no lead alternative becomes available, we will be very happy to sell it. There is a no lead Swift fuel that is used. It's an 80 octane replacement. You can't buy 80 octane anywhere anymore. They stopped making it. That originally was a no lead fuel. It was designed for low compression engines. The Swift fuel is available both at Sauk and up at, or over at not Lone Rock, at Wanakee. And it is designed specifically to be a direct replacement for that. We do not sell it here because there are very few aircraft on the field that could use it. Let's see. Brush removal. I'm going to do a real quick bit here. I know I meant to get this on the agenda, but we didn't. I very much want to use goats to try to clear out areas along our fence and in the waterway. The waterway is very difficult to get into. It's got 7+ years of growth in there. I think if you look at, and I've had one of our people, Carl Randall, go over this, and we'll get the numbers to you when it's appropriate, or we could do it now. But the reality is the goats, for clearing out that area, is cost effective and probably less expensive than going in and doing it manually, renting the equipment, doing any of those items. So I'd like to have permission to at least go ahead and use, spend about $2,000 on having a fellow bring in his herd. He uses these goats, some of those goats in O'Hare, doing the same kind of stuff. So he's familiar with the airport. The goats are not bothered by jet airliners. They wouldn't be bothered by our little aircraft. They want us to try an experiment, really a section, to see how well that works. It'll be along the fence line. It'll be visible. It's green. It works much better, I think, than getting in there with power equipment and trying to operate. The advantage also is in the waterways that are so overgrown, and Larry Wagner has mentioned this several times, they're not operating as they've been designed. They are clogging up and reducing the flow through that area, as well as potentially damming that area with debris. So the airport is not draining as it should be with this. We need to clear that area out. Now, there are trees in there that we'll have to go in and take down with chainsaws, but the bulk of what we have is relatively easy to remove by the goats. They'll be knocking it down and grazing it. So I know it's not on the agenda. I just wanted to bring it up. I'd definitely like to see this on the agenda, but I think the expenditure is well within the airport manager's purview of going ahead and trying to do this. I'd like guidance. If you don't think so, we'll wait for a formal vote and put it on the agenda, but I would like to move forward with it.
Why don't I mean, I'll get with you, Rich, between meetings, and we can try to get it on the agenda, because I'm sure people are going to have a lot of questions, like how do you control them, and that kind of stuff. So
very good.
All right.
So again, I think we have a issue with expectations out here, and what we can do as the city, and what we can actually regulate versus what's out there. The noise compliance that we try to do, this is a voluntary noise abatement procedure. It is contrary to the FAA standard pattern. Just want to emphasize that. Occasionally, we're going to have people that either don't know our procedure or forget and fly their own bit. There may be some other bits out there that violate, but we're, like I said, most of the noise complaints that we're getting are for people overflying someone's house that doesn't want it. They want us to fly over someone else's house. And they're following the procedure. They're at pattern altitude or higher. So I am, the noise reporting hotline in my mind should be for, you know, people, the bad actors, not someone who's following a procedure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Rich. Duly noted. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I don't. I think that covers pretty much everything that we went through, although it is interesting to note that the people, we had Dr. Bryce was calling for a curfew. Dr. Bryce was a charter client of mine, and we left a lot earlier than 7 in the morning on many of his flights. We've been, as I said, we've been in airports since 1942. We're operating at 80% of what we did last year, and we're generating complaints at a much greater level than we ever have.
Duly noted. Any of the commissioners, do you have a question of Rich?
I don't, this is Robert, not so much a question of Rich, but I would like to see us develop a separate email address that can be used for noise. I agree that's the way to go, and I don't know what steps we as a commission can take versus asking the city to participate. But as Maury Airplane Company is transitioning to a new server with a new structure, I think it would make sense for us to step in and supply the email system that could be used for noise, you know, one more source of, if people want to email, which they obviously do, I think that's just one more place that we can set up a dedicated email drop box basically for those reports to come into. And it just is one more place where people can put information. Now, I would still always recommend people supply the same information that we ask for on our website, because that's the kind of information we need to do something with noise complaints. But yeah, anyway, that's my recommendation. And I don't know that we vote on it, but we certainly, that's where I would encourage the commission to go.
I think that there's a good possibility, Robert, that on the next agenda, we may be adding noise reporting as an item, because there's been a lot of requests for changes to the website and some other thing. And maybe it's been a year since we did it, and maybe now is a good time for us to collectively review where we're at and where we can go with it. So I was thinking that, or my intentions were to try to get it on next month's agenda.
Great, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Any other questions of our airport manager? Okay, with that, I'd like to.
John, could I just ask a quick question of staff?
Yes.
There was a comment made during public comment that actually was a question that I've had before too, and I was just curious. I mean, I know we're not doing a back and forth with the public specifically, but it relates to the noise complaints. So I think if Rich could just comment on it for clarification, I think would be helpful for a lot of people. This idea of when you fly 1,000 feet above ground level, and then there's topography. What relationship does the topography have on the height that you keep as a pilot over ground level when you are in the pattern, when you're specifically in the pattern?
That's a highly discussed point, and it's actually in the pilot's manual. And we've had it there quite a few times. The elevation of the traffic pattern is set by the Bureau of Aviation, and to standardize it so that people who have no familiarity with an airport, although they should be looking it up before they come to the airport because it's published, is standardized at 1,000 foot above the pavement of the runway. So in our case, the runway is 928 feet. The elevation for the pattern is 1,928 feet. It is irrespective of any surrounding area. If you are physically in the pattern, meaning taking off or landing or operating with an intention to land, then you operate at the 1,928 feet or, slightly higher. That is the pattern altitude as set. You can fly higher if you want, but that's designed so that people can see each other laterally, and we're all flying at the same level. Now, when the minimum safe altitude is defined as 1,000 foot above ground level, so it's a different reference point. If you're in the pattern, then you're flying at the 1928. If you're not intending to be in the landing pattern, then you need to use minimum safe altitude.
And that has to do then with congestion versus non-congested areas, because as I understand
congestion is really lateral spacing. Well, you're right. The 1,000 foot is based on noise sensitive and congested areas.
Right. So to rephrase, as a layperson, which most of the people in this meeting, I presume, are like me and are not pilots and are learning as we go. So I think you just summarized it very well. Let me summarize it a different way. So unless you are landing, in the pattern to land at the airport, unless you are in that pattern, in which case you are flying 1,000 feet above airport elevation, which is 920 or 1,928 feet. So that's 1,000 feet over the runway. Unless you are in the process of in the pattern to land at the airport, you have to maintain 1,000 feet above ground level when you're flying over what's considered a congested area, which is vaguely defined, but which is generally accepted to include the area around the airport. Otherwise, in the non-congested area, you have to maintain at least that 500 feet.
Yeah, I don't know that we have any non-congested areas.
Understood. But these are the different numbers that are out there that people can find online.
Yeah.
And so it's 1,000 feet above the bluff that was spoken if you're not on the approach to land. But most people who are flying in the pattern if they're in the pattern, they're with the intent on landing. So then they have to be 1,000 feet over the runway. Go ahead.
The other exception to the rule is if you're on an instrument procedure, and an instrument procedure is specified, and it will be lower than either coming in or out. I mean, this is all in the pilot's manual, and we refer to the actual Federal Aviation Regulation number, and you can Google the numbers and you can take it and look them up.
But the instrument procedure involves the landing as well.
It does, but it actually specifies a glide slope and the points that you have to go over. I mean, it's very regimented so that when you can't see out the front window, or down below, when you get to maybe 500 feet above the ground and you look down, there should be a runway there.
Right. But my point though is you wouldn't be in that instrument procedure unless you're intent on trying to land. That's the point I was trying to make. So, okay, I understand this better, and I will have the minutes succinctly summarize this as we have in the past. Thank you.
And I need to add a little clarification as well. It is both for takeoff and landing, as I'm sure you understand, Mark. So you're in the pattern. Also, we're in a unique situation in that Madison's Class C airspace, which you cannot enter unless you're speaking with the Madison controller, is at 2,300 feet of MSL, mean sea level, which, what is that, about 1,400 feet above ground level. So we can't come over the airport at a high altitude. You have to be down relative, below that. If our pattern altitude is 1928, we've better be well below 2,300 feet by the time we're at the power lines 2 miles west of here. So that limits what we can do. Also, this is and always has been a training airport. Your FAA standard for a private pilot is plus or minus 100 feet on the traffic patterns. So as a flight instructor, if I don't teach my people to hold their pattern altitude, they're going to probably flunk their check ride. That's not something that we are in the business of doing. So the highest area around here is maybe 150 feet above. That there may be in the relative pattern area. At least that's what I've looked at. It's possible it might be a bit higher. Again, we're an airport. We have been operating as an airport. There are at least 29 relatively new lots being built on right now under and adjacent to the power lines that are west of us, which is the crosswind. For the most part, that's where people are turning their crosswinds. Yeah, we're being built around, but to say that, okay, I built next to a farm, therefore the farm should shut down. I built next to a train track should shut down. Build next to an airport, the airport should shut down. No, I can't see it.
Okay. Mark, did you get your questions answered or clarification?
I did, thank you. I found that in the pilot's guide, and I just thought it would be helpful to restate it here, given the
Okay,
question.
yeah, everything is in the pilot guide, the procedures in the pilot guide, the noise abatement procedures. I mean, we do our best to make sure everybody is aware of the regulations and, you know, and fly them, you know, to the best of our ability. Unless I'm at the controls, I can't guarantee a whole lot, but I can certainly educate them as to what they should and shouldn't be doing. So, okay, with that, we'll finish up or close out the airport manager's report and then go on to our actual discussion items. And so what I have here wanted to go over. So we have our monthly funds and uses report. And so, you know, we have our meeting right almost at the couple of days after the end of the month, and Bill doesn't really get a chance to get all the journals done. So these numbers do change a little bit with time. So Bill provided a preliminary, if you will, of costs. Most of these are pretty standard numbers we've seen. It looks like we've moved some things around and re-journalized them, but the numbers are pretty much as anticipated through the year. So that's the numbers, and if anybody has a question on any of them, we'll try to answer those for you. And if not, then we'll go to the budget.
Hey, John.
And, yes, sir.
This is Robert. Can
Hi,
you remind me or educate me? For preliminary August, we have a negative $4,000 operating expense that matches up with the January $4,000 some dollar operating expense.
Yeah.
Maybe you just said that, but remind me what that was again. And
Mark, you guys recategorized it.
okay, I see it. Yeah, there's something.
Yeah, he moved. They changed.
Oh, I had gone through as I was preparing the budget submittal for the our deadline internally here. I was going through the line item for actually that's for insurance. I had found something miscoded. Basically, there were a couple things shuffled around because they had been miscoded. Mike Davis does the bill paying, and I presume that there was just whether it was on his end or the city, I don't know what happened. But the point is this happens from time to time with all of our accounts in the city. And when we find something that was miscoded, we just reallocate it. So
okay, it's just it's just a correction or a reallocation.
Exactly.
Okay.
Since we're in the middle of the budget process, everybody's scrutinizing the numbers to try to understand what has happened previously. And in the process of the deep dive, they say, oh my gosh, they should have been over here. And so you can see they not only shuffled the $4,011 around, there's a $451 when they shift around. Yeah. So they're just
I know what happened. Yeah, I know what happened. So the number that's highlighted is, I noticed that it was way beyond what was budgeted. And when I asked to find out what that bill was, that's when I realized, oh, that was insurance. That should have been coded up here. So it just was a simple clerical mistake. We fixed it.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you for that explanation.
Yeah. So back 10 years or 15 years ago, I used to get the actual journal entries, the list of the bills, and I used to help the city categorize them. And there's really not that many, as you can see, there's not that many transactions here. And so I've offered to do that again, if they'd like me to do that. And that kind of assures that everything goes in the right bucket. And It also makes me smarter and easier to describe things when people ask questions. So I have a greater familiarity to it. So that's an offer that's been made, but these are just recategorizations.
Yeah, and I think we sent you the line items for grounds maintenance, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I did get
That
those.
sounds right. But okay, I just thank you. I just appreciate the clarification.
That you're asking the same question I did when I saw it. It's like, how do we have a negative expense? But then if you look up, you can see they're just moving it and zeroing back around. But the bottom line number is roughly the same. The last item I had, and I wanted to make sure everybody aware of it. Last month, we voted on approval, a recommended budget that we sent to the city. And the city, through its inspection and looking at what actual costs were and some others, made some adjustments to it. Mark, can you kind of roll that one up? It's got a comparison. It's the next one up. There you go. So if you see the top, it says as recommended, but as submitted. So I wanted you to be aware of the changes that were made through the inspection process by the city, and that what will go in front of the council will not be as we recommended it. It will be as adjusted based on real numbers that they've got, such as insurance quotes and other kinds of things, where they actually know what the number is, and it's not our suspected number.
John,
Yeah.
if I can, I'm just going to jump in quickly here, and because this gives a little bit of an explanation. So anytime there's a variation from what was the prior year's budgeted amount, and you're requesting a change from that amount, whether it's an increase or a decrease, the city uses what's called a decision item process. And so this is the summary, taking the table that John has. This is the summary of how we adjusted each of those account line items. And there's a little description here. So if you have any questions, I can fill in there. Any questions you have.
Yeah, Mark included these. Those are the documents that the city sees and use. It's kind of two different worlds. I'm used to dealing with a single spreadsheet, and the city has their formulas, methods, and municipal accounting. Sometimes I get a little tangled up in. But for those of you who are alders who are going to be having to look at the numbers, they are there, and Mark can explain how they got transcribed from the spreadsheet into the city's forms. So I just want to be aware that what's going to be submitted is not what we recommended. It'll be slightly different. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Yep. And for that is really the last item I have on our agenda this month. We do have some potential items that we will put on for next month. So we'll go a little deeper. We can get, we'll see about getting Rich's goat herd on the agenda. And obviously maybe the speaker, we can get a speaker that's somebody has experience doing goats, because I don't know how you can keep them where they're supposed to go. And also we have a contract coming up with Mr. Wagner that's going to need to be redone soon. And so we're going to have to get that back on the agenda. And then the other item is we want to maybe take a review of where we are with some of our reporting and, it's kind of use and misuse, and can we help, make it effective and efficient, but at the same time, not overwhelming for our staff, and our airport manager. So there ought to be a way that we can make things better. So those are the three things that I'm thinking about right now. And also we'll try to go through the funding that we have for entitlements and try to do a reconciliation now that we know what our tractors are going to cost and our buckets are going to cost, and what money we'll have available. And then also there's a look at maybe a requeuing up of what potential maintenance projects we would have, and the order which we should execute those could be a discussion topic. And does, if anybody else has any thoughts, ideas, comments, if you can drop me an email or let us know, we'll certainly take those into consideration and try to get them on the agenda. It'll be interesting after this month. It looks like AMPAC will restart, and after they get going, maybe we'll try to shadow some of their minutes and keep track of what's going on. So when it comes to us, we can hit the ground running and hopefully make good decisions. Okay.
John, just to add to that, the AMPAC Airport Master Plan Advisory Committee meeting, we are planning to meet on Thursday, September 24th at 5:30.
Perfect.
So,
And I remember, I'll be happy to, brief or share everything that we've got. So,
okay. Well, it'll be good to see that back going again and the process moving forward.
Yeah. And anybody who wishes to receive information for that meeting, we have 2 listservs, one for the Airport Commission and one for AMPAC. Both are available on the city's website under Notify Me. You just select all the issues you want to receive mailings about. But if you aren't selected to receive AMPAC agendas, then you won't receive AMPAC agendas. So be sure to, if you didn't get an email from me today and are interested in that topic, then be sure to sign up on the city's website for AMPAC mailings.
Right. I'm assuming automatically all the airport commissioners will get a copy of everything.
But yeah, I mean, the answer is yes, but I don't send it to the airport list, although I may in this case, just to let people know. But
yeah, no, I'm talking about the commissioners.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Okay, because we're going to have to take an action somewhere, and I think it's important that we shadow the process. Great. I don't have anything else. If somebody would like to make a motion to adjourn. Ray, you look like are you there?
Oh, he's muted.
Yeah,
So
you got to unmute.
this is Robert. I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, and I'll second the motion. So we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Upon hearing no discussion, all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Okay, same sign opposed. With that, we will bring the September 2020 Airport Commission meeting to a close.
Great. Thank you so much. You guys all have a good night.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.